Everyone. Let me check chat real quick. How did you guys do this morning? Oh wait, I'm still server muted. Let's fix that. Just realized I was server muted from the study bot this morning. Anyways, how do you guys do this morning? Type in chat. And I am bullish. The market looks bullish for at least the nearest pivots. Didn't do very well this morning just because I just didn't really get anything. I mean, there's not much I'm able to do. You guys know, you know. Um, what kinds of mornings am I red? It's mornings where not a single pivot sweeps, not one. And yeah, that happened today, which is fine, because it's a fairly rare occurrence. I did call it early though. If I kept trading, I would have taken one more loss before I finally would have won. Now the win would have been bigger than the loss, but again, it's just, I only trade the first 45 minutes to an hour each day, and if I'm unwilling to take another loss, I stop trading, period. But we'll review this morning. So here was the first candle market open. We did have some kind of pivots below. ES got a buying wick. This candle was pretty bearish. I wanted to enter QQQ puts on this candle, and I kind of wish I did, but I didn't fill. Like I just couldn't alert them. I couldn't fill, couldn't alert them. Whatever. And I did end up scalping SPX puts here coming up. But anyways, NQ got to this pivot. ES doesn't have any pivots anywhere close. I haven't highlighted on my chart, right? The only pivot that was close was this NQ low, and when it gets a massive red candle like this, there's a good chance I'm just not going to be able to fill and catch it, and the risk to reward's terrible. So still waiting at the moment. Very patient morning for the most part. And NQ puts in bearish consolidation here. This is looking rather bearish. However, unfortunately, it kind of just broke to the downside. Didn't feel that either. I was hoping ES would kind of make bearish consolidation, but it didn't. ES kind of looked like it had a reversal set up. Now, the huge selling wick, that isn't bullish, but it isn't necessarily bearish. Obviously, there needs to be a lot of buying for that selling wick to be taking place. And I'm thinking possible short squeeze, and it's just kind of, and NQ was stronger than ES, because while ES was dropping here, NQ was maintaining. But now it flipped, so just kind of waiting. But here it finally started looking like a pretty decent bear pennant here. And by here, NQ looked great to potentially go up. So I'm like, okay, well, this is either a bear pennant on ES or NQ is going to go up, or both, right? Well, this is now a bear pennant. So I decided to take a trade. And I will enter this trade. Hang on, I just realized that magnet isn't on. I'll enter this trade if we get one more red candle, kind of here, and I'll scalp it through new low of day. And at the start of the candle, I filled it. Impossible to even alert. Didn't even get a chance. I pretty much sold it on this candle here. So I got like a 10% gain on that. Literally just a tiny gain. But couldn't alert it. It was impossible. Like just the way that candle ended up being, and me not waiting until candle close to enter for good reason. I couldn't do it. So yeah. So that was the first trade I took. It was just, a scalp, but unalertable. So it's not included in like the recap or anything like that. But very slow morning. I mean, 15, almost 15 minutes in and pretty much nothing so far. Now, I finally do end up taking a trade here soon. And you can guess it, it's QQQ calls filled on this candle. I didn't fill all the way at the bottom of the wick. I filled roughly right here. The huge buying wick made me uneasy, but this was just a demand reversal. Really easy trade. We were already chopping down. We got a nice reversal candle. We got a volume spike in demand. This is proper demand confirmation here. The only thing is you didn't really get a trend line break to the upside confirming a trend reversal, but like if I wait for that, I'm going to be buying at resistance. I don't want to do that. I'd rather take the decent risk to reward. So this is my first trade, KikiQ calls, and I'm selling right when they get to this PT. It's a very hard PT. And we end up getting there, sold right when it hit it. So that was only a 13% gain, unfortunately, and it chopped because of these buying wicks. And NQ did flip weaker, unfortunately. But that was the first alert. Nice little win. So now I'm up on the day personally by roughly a 20% trade. But as far as alert channel goes, it's up 13%. So now I'm kind of thinking, okay, we have made lower lows, we bounce out of demand. We've invalidated a majority of the drop. I like calls to new hive day. I'm thinking, with the way we were chopping down, and I was kind of thinking a short squeeze down here because of this huge selling wick. This is what I'll call a rather bullish selling wick. I'm kind of foreseeing a short squeeze. But I need a lot more confirmation beforehand, and I need NQ to not be chopping as much. Now, I did end up entering calls while NQ was still kind of chopping, and I entered the calls here. I thought this was a pretty damn good trade. Yes, NQ is technically, kind of a rising wedge at the moment, which is the only red flag, which is why I entered SPX calls half size. But looking at the candles on NQ, if we break them down, these 4 candles, lower lows with buying wicks. Well, 5. But these candles, lower lows with buying wicks. We didn't sweep this low, unfortunately. And then this candle, ton of momentum, breaking into this selling wick here. And no doubt in my mind, the next candle is going to be solid green and at least break over this rising wedge. So the rising wedge isn't playing a huge factor. ES, you take all that information. I assume that NQ is likely to at least get to the 78.6 fib. Doesn't look like it's going to reject the 61.8. Or sorry, 61.8. It's later that happened. I think it's at least going to get to the 61.8, in my opinion, which is right here. And if ES is a lot stronger, I'm hoping that by the time NQ is at the 61.8 fib, or maybe even at supply, ES is already going to be at the high. But unfortunately, I do need to go half size because the rising wedge is still valid, which is potentially make ES pull back. But I'm okay if ES pulls back because it'll look like a cup and handle. So I'll average up on this trade. I'll add my second half if we get to here, and I'll average down if we get to here. That's the game plan for this trade, and I really like this trade. I thought this was a pretty good trade. But unfortunately, I didn't really think the consumer sentiment was going to be a big deal. It was a big deal. Now, I didn't stop out here. I actually had a little bit better fill. I don't remember where my stop loss was actually. Yeah, my fill was a little bit better. I filled like roughly here, so my stop loss was like down here. I decided to hold it for one extra candle because it put in the huge buying wick, and then it kind of ended up popping up. I think this was my stop loss was roughly right around here is what I remember. I think this was the trade. But now the call's really, really chopped, which sucked. Now it's good that I'm half size, but I'm like, okay, I will, because, NQ broke to the downside from the rising wedge, so that's kind of done. And now we're just kind of chopping in a channel. I wish NQ made a lower low, like swept low of day. But we did get a huge volume spike out of demand. You know what? I will add my second half to this trade if the red candle pretty much fully invalidates. Because by then, it'll look pretty good to break to the upside. Pretty much a similar deal. But the news, the bad consumer sentiment really threw a wrench in things, which is really unfortunate. But it just kind of happens sometimes. I didn't expect it to have that big of a reaction. I just thought maybe if it were bearish, it would catalyze the handle for the cup and handle. But anyways, I end up taking my ad. Not here. Almost added here, but I didn't. Prepared to stop out here. And then this candle happened. I was very close to stopping out here because pretty much I'm like, all right, I'm half. Keep in mind when I'm half size, I can take a way bigger percent loss. I can sell for minus 50%, but because I'm still half size position, it's only like a 25% loss. I would rather give it more time to figure out what's going on because clearly, look at my chart right now. Look how this is a freaking disaster this morning. Look at this. Like, this is not options friendly. It's future scalping friendly only if you trade reversals, scalps. This is a mess. This is a mess. Untradeable. But because I'm half size, I would rather take extra time, stop out at 50% if I need to. Sure, that doesn't look great on recaps, but if I'm half size, it's only a normal 25% loss, which is fine. I'd much rather do that than try to. I'd rather do that and just wait than average down and still take a 40% loss, but on twice the size position, or um, it's just I'm just sacrificing too much potential. I have room to wait. That's pretty much what I'm getting at. But anyways, this candle happened, and this was a very nice candle. I took my ad on this candle. Now I entered the calls at 2.7. My ad up here was only at 2.2. I'm like, all right, if this green candle invalidates, I'm pretty much out. Or at this point, my average came down a freaking ton. Oops. Get rid of this little white line. Dude, stop doing that. My average was roughly right here. All right, if we drop to here, I'm out. Because then I'm going to be bearish for new low of day. And that was kind of the plan. If I stop out, I'm going to flip bearish. I'm going to flip the puts for new low of day because no shot that doesn't happen. But this looked pretty decent. I genuinely thought a short squeeze was going to happen. Looked great, kept having big drops, invalidated those drops. I don't like the NQ higher highs at all. But this was literally the next candle. Like, what the hell am I even doing here? So, yeah, very crappy experience. And I stopped out on, not this candle, right when this candle invalidates, right here. It didn't actually invalidate, but I closed it early. Oh, yeah, so the candle didn't fully invalidate, but the calls chopped a ton. So by the time I closed right here, the calls were back to what they were like down here. So I ended up selling at 1.7. I averaged down at 1.9, and I sold at 1.7. So didn't take a huge loss on that second half that I added. So my overall loss in that full-size position was minus 26 or 7%. And with just how much the calls were chopping, which makes sense because look at price action. Yes, it wasn't fully invalidated yet. It can still break to the upside. But I'd rather play it safe than sorry. And with the way the contracts are moving, if I just kind of hold it, I'm risking holding through a 70% loss for it to maybe go back up. It's just not something I'm willing to do. And again, I try my best to not care about my win rate. I try to just do what's correct. And yeah, I thought this trade was a good trade. It was a pretty good average down, but yeah, news just kind of screwed it, and then price action was just terrible. So I stopped out, and I'm like, all right, I'll take another trade. Whichever one's weaker to new low of day, if I get it, because at this point, NQ is a huge bear flag. It's not a proportional bear flag though. I do not expect this to break super far to the downside because the bear flag invalidated most of the freaking drop, the initial drop, which doesn't happen. But here's a nice little kind of pennant you can see. And if it invalidates most of this, I'm going to be like, all right, I'll take one more stab. Because now I have potential. I got this pivot down here, which is at low of day. And then I got this pivot down here from pre-market low, which is also happened to be a perfect double bottom. Not a super major one, but it is one. So I have some really nice PTs below, and I want to be able to catch it if it happens. I fill puts on this candle. It is exactly what I need. Exactly what I need. I end up, I think my stop loss was roughly here. Let me check. Yep, that's where my stop loss was. And keep in mind, if I stop out, it's going to look good for calls again because it's going to break here soon. And it's just kind of a game of where you think it's going to break. But most of the time it actually breaks. I'm not going to wait to enter when it breaks because it's likely to be a double fake out. I'm okay, especially with this choppy price action. I end up stopping out here. So I took another nice 27% loss. So as far as the alerts go, it was plus 13%, minus 26%, minus 27%. Pretty much did the best I could. The trades that I did allow myself to get triggered into were very valid trades. And the one that did have a caveat, I went half size on, which gave the best chance possible. And the half size was a great idea, which made me avoid a massive loss. But I stopped here. This is where I stopped trading. I'm like, all right, keep in mind, I did get that extra little like 7 or 8% scalp, or maybe 10. I don't remember what it was. It was like 7 to 10%. I did get that extra little scalp in the morning. So really, I was up 23% and I lost 43%. So I'm down by roughly 120 to 30% trade. That's easy to make back in the morning. And on mornings where there's a lot of potential still, I won't stop trading because there's an immediate setup. And at this point, I think it's going to break to the upside, but you also got to take into account context. If you're going to choose a morning to stick around and continue risking money on, choose a morning that's had good price action, not a morning that you hope that price action becomes good. And that's a lesson that I learned a long time ago. And I still, unfortunately, have to learn that lesson several times over occasionally. But this morning just wasn't a morning worth sticking around and making my money back from. But I was pretty bullish on a break to the upside here. I cut the options trading though, cut the alerting. It did break to the upside, but I would have taken a loss on it because it didn't hit my pivot. Maybe I could have trimmed, whatever. But then finally it broke to the downside afterwards. So price action became good once the first hour was over, which is just unfortunate, but there's nothing you can do sometimes, you know. Just when there's zero pivot swept and price action is compressing or consolidating pretty much the entire morning. I mean, that's all it was doing ever since 5 minutes in. Then there's no money to be made, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? So that was my morning. Do any of you guys have any questions whatsoever? Remember, at the beginning of this, I said I was pretty bullish. Let's see if it did. It did. So if you guys took a trade right at the start, I did say I was extremely bullish to at least this level. Still bullish to new high of day, though, because NQ missed this pivot. Yeah, congrats on that little win. That was an easy, very easy win. Nice. Like this right here is the cup and handle that I wanted this morning. This was my plan. This is what I wanted. You got the nice cup and handle. I'm entering roughly here because, you know, it's not always going to put in a handle, but I'm going to go half size to add on the handle and then play it up and then stop out if the handle invalidates. So nice price action this second hour. Sucks that I'm not a part of it, but we all have rules and they're better followed than not followed. But like I said, does anyone have any questions regarding any of the trades I took or price action? And by the way, after this recording, stay in this channel. I'm going to talk to you guys about the announcements coming up, or the announcements that I made yesterday, and then I'll let you guys go. No questions? Everyone's good? All right, I'm going to post this review on YouTube. I will ping everyone on my channel when it is done. And stick around because we'll talk about the announcements from yesterday.